Hey, Scott from MyGrowthRings.com here once again is in my home shop. And welcome back once again to our midweek episode of Stumped Q&A. Yeah, the whole idea behind Stumped is to follow up from the weekend video where typically I leave something out and to get a chance to answer your questions, comments, and cheap shots. So first off, thank you, Mark, and to others who left comments on other social media about my daughter and her husband. We appreciate your concern and your thoughts. So thank you very much. Okay, John had a question or a comment about the problem with horizontal boring, and that is keeping the stock down on the table. He's right about that. You know, when you're drilling on a drill press, you're not only pushing down onto the table with your drill press, but gravity is also helping us out, where when we're drilling into the side of a piece, there's a potential for the board to lift and possibly to slide. Earlier versions of the Mark V, and I'm talking about the original model 510. Golly, where did that come from? The 10ER, the early model of the Mark V, which called the Model 500. Don't get me started on the Mark II and so on. They didn't lock so firmly on the back of the table. And so when you're doing horizontal boring, there was a little bit of a tendency for them to pivot. If that is the issue you're having, I would recommend using a clamp, either clamping down on the fence itself, or even better, I would put a block of wood behind the fence on the far end and clamp that to the table. That's the best way to ensure that the fence is not going to move on you. And that could change your depth of cut, meaning that you're going to bore a little more shallow if the fence moves away. But it could also change your angle, which can throw problems your way. Another question that related to that was, how about something on the miter slots? Yeah, you absolutely could make yourself some clamps that could connect to those miter slots and clamp the board onto the table. I've made sub tables in the past and things like that that worked well. Just depends upon how much of that you're going to be doing as to how much you want to put into that. Hal said, where do you get the Dowel tool? Oh, that's the Dowel former. I don't know that it's made anymore. It was manufactured by a company called General Tool. And I did find it at Highland Woodworking. And I believe, no, I didn't find it at Amazon. I found them on eBay. So I will link to it in the description, and that'll take you right to eBay. And just check Highland Woodworking to make sure that on eBay you're not paying more than the cost of a new one. All right. Carl said, how many Shopsmiths do you have and what did you do at Shopsmith? Okay, that's not, I own a couple. Okay, I got a 10ER, a Mark II, a couple 500s, a couple 510s, and a couple clones, three of the Shopsmith radial arm saws, and about 8 band saws and a bunch of, anyway. What did I do at Shopsmith? From 1987 until the mid 90s, I worked for them in some retail stores. I worked at the factory showroom in Dayton, Ohio. I managed what they called the Boston store, which was in Chelmsford, Massachusetts. And then I was the academy instructor back at the Dayton Academy till about the mid 90s. And then I left, started my own thing, but continued kind of under contract with them for a while. And then they hired me again to test a franchise concept. And so from about 97 to 99, we were testing a franchise. And at that point, we parted ways, and I went to work for a German cabinet hardware manufacturer. Um, been an owner of Shopsmith equipment and user since '87, and fell in love with them actually years before that. So, and absolutely love the product. All right, let's see. Jason said that he's not a fan of using the dowel centers. That's these little things. Okay, first off, I'm not a fan of these ones I got at Harbor Freight either. But yeah, to that point, there's a couple ways that you can transfer and set up your markings for any kind of drilling or horizontal boring. I kind of got in the habit of using those when we were making the three-legged pedestal tables in the Shopsmith Academy. Anybody who went through the fundamentals of woodworking class built that table. And when you got a turn spindle and you're wanting to transfer markings from holes that you've drilled into the leg, that was really easy. But if you want to measure your stock, measure one piece, and then set up stops on the table or on the fence. And with this model fence, the 520, the 510, they have these T slots that make it real easy to attach stops. The challenge with using stops is imagine that I'm drilling these boards to join them together like for a face frame. If I have a stop set up that's measured, let's say, a ½ inch in from this end and a ½ inch in from that end, if my stock varies in thickness at all, that introduces an error between the 2 points. So instead, I would typically use a stop and then a spacer to space me away from that stop for my second hole. Then the problem is if I turn this piece end for end, I'm now referencing an opposite side of this one, and I can introduce yet another error. So while those dowel centers can be a challenge, I like them because I can have holes that are off on this piece and they'll be off exactly the same space on the mating piece. Anyway, we'll get into that some other time, but thank you, Jason, for your comments on that. George asked, is Shopsmith still in business? Yes, Shopsmith is in business, still in Dayton, Ohio. They've really trimmed down their offering. At one time they had retail stores with pretty much what you see at a Woodcraft and a Rockler store. They had over 50 locations. They shut them all down, sold about 20, 25 of them to Woodcraft, and kind of got back to what they do, and that is the Shopsmith manufactured products. Every now and again, they have something that they refer to internally as an allied product, a product that's just branded Shopsmith, made by somebody else. But for the most part, they don't do a whole lot of that anymore. And then as for parts, yeah, you can get all those parts new from Shopsmith, and you can also buy them used on eBay. There's a number of people who pick up old machines and part them out and sell them individually on eBay. And it's not a bad way to go. I made a comment about how, yes, they're used, but then again, every part on this machine is used too. And so you might save yourself some money. Definitely availability of parts at Shopsmith can be hit and miss because they run on a pretty small crew there and they're making mostly products or parts for the products that they're selling. That was confusing, I'm sorry. Mostly they're making parts for finished tools and they don't have a lot of overrun for spare parts. So there are times where you'll be on a waiting list looking for a part. So it's not a bad idea to have that used spare for some of the most needed components. And we'll talk about that another time as well. Let's see. Only Scott can only Scott can record one of his longest videos and say he's going to keep it short. What I meant by that was I wasn't going to have time to edit. I needed to pretty much be able to just hit record and get it done. And as a result, that video was pretty long. And I referenced Mark Twain, who said at one time in a letter that, sorry, I don't have time to write a short letter, and meaning no time to edit. Luke said, what did you do at Shopsmith? I'm sorry, what did you do with your Shopsmith to make it run so quietly? It's these earbuds. They have noise canceling. So as soon as I turn the tool on, it adjusts the volume down. So let me take these off and then we'll record with this machine running. Now listen to this. Here's the sound of it running. Actually not that loud. And now here it is just through the mic on the iPhone. Again, not terrible. So let's talk a little bit about drill bits. What I was using this weekend was a Brad Point drill bit. This one was made by a company called Forest City Tools here in North Carolina, and it was sold as Shopsmith. I have a set of Shopsmith Brad Point drill bits, and they are excellent. So a Brad Point drill bit is very similar to a twist bit, only it has a different kind of a tip on it. When you touch the wood, the first thing it encounters is the point, and then the next thing the wood encounters are these outside cutting edges. Now you'll see that they don't come out to a point, they're curled over So as they hit the wood, they actually begin to push the wood fibers down, score the outside, and then this center surface right here that is like a little chisel will scrape out or chisel out the wood in between the scoring. Not all brad points are shaped this way. You can buy them. Fish makes brad points that work like this as well. But keep an eye out for the Shopsmith ones. They're really very good on eBay. You want to avoid them though if they have a black shank. For a time, they were importing some under the name and didn't care for them. Now, another style of bit that I use a lot is a Forstner-style bit. Now, these were invented in the late 1800s by a guy named Benjamin Forstner. His didn't look like this. His Forstner bit looked closer to this one, and you can tell the difference because this one has a solid rim where that one had a serrated rim. But again, similar to the brad point, the tip hits the wood first, and that's great for hitting a mark that you're trying to drill. Then the exterior scores the circle, and then these little lifting surfaces chisel out the wood in between. Benjamin Forstner's bit had almost no point in the center, so it could be a little bit of a challenge getting it dead on. And the rim was huge. It was almost a complete circle with just a notch where the lifters are. It made it a challenge for sharpening with machinery. So as the years went by and other people started making Forstner bits, they made those changes to allow them to sharpen these with power tools. Now this one is a multi-spur bit, and then it got its name because they took that solid rim, which is prone to overheating and thereby losing its temper, as my mom used to say, which means it's not going to hold a sharp edge anymore. So with these larger Forstner bits or Forstner-style bits, they tend to do a multi-spur, and they've made a series of teeth here to allow it to not run so hot. So you have fewer points in contact with the wood. Interestingly, only a couple of these are actually scoring the wood. The others are a bit shorter and kind of just follow around the circle, just removing waste. And then you have this large lifting surface that again acts kind of like a chisel. These are great, and especially as we get into larger diameters, and there's several brands. Now, Forstner bits that I would avoid look like this. And you can see there is almost no rim at all. And that score line, or that spur right there, is just there to score and really doesn't do a great job. I think I got a set of 5 or 6 of these for $3.99. And something that we can do with Forstner bits that we can't do with most bits is we can drill a hole and then drill a hole that overlaps it, or even drill off the edge of a piece. And we can't do that with this because it has to be able to be guided by that rim, and that rim doesn't exist with this bit. All right, all that said, I wanted to show you a drill bit that you can't get, at least probably. And this is a Forstner-style bit that was made up until about 20 years ago, and it was available in 1/4, 3/8, and 1/2 inch diameters. Now you see there is absolutely no center spur on that, and almost a continuous rim. And then there's only one lifting surface, so a single flute. It's very short and stubby, which actually makes it real stable. So it can't drill terribly deep. It can drill down to about that point, which is about 1 inch deep with this one. But it does a wonderful job in producing mortises. And I'm going to chuck that up here, and we will cut a mortise in the edge of one of these pieces. My own complaint about that last video is you couldn't really see the depth adjustment that I made. So let's take this bit, and you can see I've just made a few marks on here, simulating where maybe the shoulder of this mortise would be, a mortise and tenon, and where I'd want to produce my mortise. I'm going to take my drill bit, bring it forward, and kind of bury it in the wood a little bit. And then we're going to set our depth. This determines how much further is that drill bit going to travel. Let's go 3/4 of an inch here. Okay, and here we go. We're going to drill one end, then the opposite end, and then we'll just fill in between. Check that out. I used those bits for many years, and then all of a sudden I placed an order for one and received this instead. You can see how much longer it is, and you can see that it has 2 lifting surfaces on it. So the manufacturer switched the way they produce the product. I think they even left the US with their production and went somewhere else. And so I'm going to put a link to a eBay search since it's no longer available as a new product. But you need to be careful. You need to be sure that the picture that you see is not this long version, but is instead the short one. And if you receive it in and you notice that they shipped you the long one, you're going to want to get that thing returned right away. These bits are just okay. They're not terrible, but they're nothing like that single flute Forstner bit. All right, that's it. We'll see you this weekend with something new. And in the meantime, make it a great day.